Hello. It's been a while since I've posted anything to the Survival Exchange page. Um, and what this subject is going to be something I consider to be very important. Um, there's a lot of hype out there about survival food, survival gear, survival this, survival that, in the event of anything catastrophic such as tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, social and economical collapse, etc. Well, there's been a lot of talk about prepping, being prepared. To me, that's the number one priority in life. Is always to be prepared. You don't have to be like some of those TV shows where the guy goes off into some he's dropped off in the middle of BFE out in the middle of nowhere, and all he's got is a toothpick, and he has to be MacGyver and come back in one piece. No. Uh, when it comes to surviving a disaster, there's many aspects that you have to look at. There's many things you got to consider. First off, do you have a plan? Now, that's very, very, very important beginning to any survivalism, okay, is to have a plan in place. Granted, not every plan you ever come up with will be the best. Not every plan will work. But having a plan gives you a course of action and allows you to think, hopefully, on your feet and on the go if you have to be. So, the best thing to do is to lay out a plan. Example, what is it that you are going to need in the event something happens to your place of residence where you live and you can't go anywhere, you can't get anywhere because, well, in disasters, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of factors. Um, let's start at the beginning as far as that goes. Do you live on a road that is lined with trees? Is a good example, okay, or a lot of telephone poles. All right, tornado comes through, all that wind. There's going to be debris everywhere. There's going to be section. There's going to be automobiles, parts of houses, trees, telephone poles, etc. So roads are not going to be as accessible in the red zone, which is what I call it for the disaster area, okay, the immediate area affected by the disaster. Um, so you need to come up with alternate plans or alternate ideas as to where you can go, how you can go, etc. In my van, I carry my disaster response or disaster preparedness equipment and supplies due to the fact that if I'm away from home and a disaster strikes, it's going to be hard to get back to my house to get my stuff. So my stuff is always with me. In my van, I carry a utility cart. It can carry up to 1,000 pounds. It's a pretty decent sized setup. It's not real easy to get in and out of the van, but it's there. In the event that something happens, I can load everything into the cart, and I can continue to evacuate if I have to, or go wherever I have to go. Um, Anyhow, to get back to originally what I was talking about, um, as far as making a plan, what you need to do is you need to sit down and make a list of things that you know for a fact you're going to need. You're going to need shelter. You're going to need food. You're going to need water. Okay. You're going to need personal stuff. such as personal hygiene and changes of clothes, etc. Okay. You're also going to need a medical kit, first aid kit, depending on your knowledge or your experience with first aid, etc. Okay. Um, Cooking stuff, not for the food, not food as far as cooking, but I'm talking about as far as what to cook the food with. Uh, Campfire stuff, example. Um, Rope and survival uh, gear or equipment, such as ropes, not just for camping, but for other things also. Um, Shovel, axe, um, maybe a pair of bolt cutters, things like that. And I have these all sectionalized in the van. Now, what you need to do is you make a list of your stuff. Now, I know it's kind of hard to see it on there, but on my list, yes, get the reflection off. There we go. Get the light reflection off of it if possible. Ha 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 ha. As you can see on the list, mainly on this side here, alright, I have food, water, shelter, cooking, personal, rope survival, medical. Now, I've got a van. I wrote that down. I also have a 12-foot trailer that I was using when I had my disaster response organization. I wrote that down. In that trailer, I have 2 generators, a large and a small. I wrote those down. I wrote down home because, of course, of where I live, and the road. On my second piece of paper, I put people. Self, being me, spouse, child or children, neighbors, family that are close by. Okay. Now, a little bit of background as to why I'm doing this, right? This particular segment. Recently, I joined an organization or group, local group, preppers, exchange of ideas and such. Well, I presented this idea to the folks and had one individual who didn't appreciate it, who didn't think that it was worthy, who thought it was childish, and who thought it was a game, basically. Well, the thing of it is about exchanging ideas is that you may not understand it, you may not agree with it. That does not mean that others can't. And the individual involved in the situation turned around and was very unpolite and handled it inappropriately, and I responded inappropriately. So we'll leave it at that. As needless to say, we've parted ways, but I'm still going to show this to people and get, let people know what's going on so that they can apply it for themselves. Anyhow, in a disaster, things don't go as you plan. Things don't go as you want. Okay? If you do not prepare all aspects of a disaster, when it happens, you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're not going to know what to do. You're not going to be prepared. You're not going to be able to think on your feet. I've seen it happen so many times. Now, here's the idea that I have that I use for knowing what's, to get different aspects and different views on it. It's called scenario rating. I call it that. Here's the scenario. Just had an earthquake. Okay. So, first thing I want to do is I want to check to see what I have and who's hurt, etc. Okay? And then I can go about doing what I have to do as far as, you know, responding to the disaster for myself and for those close to me. So first I'll start out with the people. Self. Well, one thing you need is a six-sided die. Very simple, very easy. You take the die, you roll it. Odd means something bad has happened. Even, okay. Now, for myself, I just rolled a 6, so that means I'm okay. Luckily, this time, thank you. Spouse, in my case, it'd be my ex, since she lives very close by. She's okay. My child. Ooh, my child is not okay. She's hurt or worse. So, make a little mark. My next door neighbor, they're okay. My other next door neighbor, they're okay. So right now, my daughter's the one that's hurt. So therefore, I'd be doing what I could as far as my medical training and experience being a combat medical specialist, retired from the Army. I'd be doing that right now. Family close by, like your parents, brothers, sisters, etc., all that are living close by you. I'd say within a 10-mile radius, 10 to 20-mile radius, okay? Because like I said, in most disasters, your accesses are going to be limited. And that's from the voice of experience on that. So, neighbors were good. Now, you see what I'm getting at as far as seeing how the scenario plays out? You can't sit here and say, oh, I'm okay, no, they're not, they're fine, they're not, they're fine. Because you don't have the randomness. You don't, in a disaster, it's going to be chaotic and random. Now, alright, we get to the big long list. Food. My food supply that I have set aside. It's good. Now for my water supply that I have set aside. Ooh, not so good. My water supply took a hit. That means I'm going to have to come up with ways of getting fresh water. Shelter. Ooh, now I'm going to have to come up with some alternatives for shelter. My cooking. Not looking good, folks. Personal stuff. Ouch. Oh boy, let's see. Rope and survival stuff. Let's see. Medical, first aid. Not good. Not good at all. This scenario, I'm screwed. A lot of stuff. Well, one good thing. My van's okay. Let's see. What about the trailer? Lost the trailer. Okay, or just damaged. Don't know how bad yet. Generator 1 is bad. Damaged. Generator 2 is damaged. Let's see, my home. Okay. I'm not going to have any power, but my home's okay. And the road's clear. Okay, got lucky on some things, but I took a really bad hit. Now, as far as that goes, now, my water supply is gone. I'm going to have steps in place to replace the water somehow, such as water filtration systems, the kind that you can buy simply in a store, online, etc. I should have something in place in the event that I've lost my water that I have now. Okay, same with the shelter. Okay, my shelter would be I've got 2 tent setups. As a matter of fact, let me see if I still have the other one. Today's just not my day. It was a real bad disaster. Lost both shelters. Alright, so what am I going to do for shelter? There's many techniques, such as using tarps, a roll of plastic, 6 mil plastic, which I've mentioned before. Cooking. Well, I'm going to have to come up with ways of setting up campfires, ways of knowing how to go about doing it without having the modern conveniences of starting a fire, such as matches, lighters, or the excuse me, mind fart there. The flint deals, the flint lights. Personal. Well, that means I lost my clothing I had set aside for disasters, as far as changing of clothing, footwear, hygiene stuff, that sort of thing. Survival gear, I lost. Oh, wait a moment. I just remembered something. That little trailer I mentioned. Well, that explains why I lost my survival gear. The trailer, of course, must have been crushed. Okay? That way there, I know all the stuff that I do have, how am I going to get it around? I got my van, and the roads so far are good. This little, I don't know what you would call it, but I would say this little exercise isn't childish, it isn't a game, it isn't a joke. What it does is it shows you the randomness of what happens, so that you have to turn around and have additional plans in place. It might be something you don't even think about until it happens, and then, well, I always have this saying that if you have to do it afterwards, in other words, prepping afterwards, etc., you may as well shoot yourself in the foot. You're not going to be able to think of everything easier than when you sit back like right now and wait a moment. Okay, I just lost both my shelters. How am I gonna survive and stay out of the elements? Okay, well, I got a tarp. I've got a roll of 6 mil plastic. I can make a makeshift tent to keep myself and my 2 pets safe and dry and warm. Okay, I do it in a more complete fashion. The best thing to do is to list everything you've got. Okay, list everything you have set aside for disasters, and then see what happens. Okay, my house is good. What about the utilities? What about the electric? Hey, I still have electricity. What about water? Ugh. Well, water lines are gone. That means that somewhere between my house and the water company, the water lines burst. Okay, earthquake, yeah, it's going to happen. What about phone? Okay, very important. The phone lines are still open. So you see what I'm saying? You get a general idea as to what's going on, and it makes it more realistic. Back in 2008, I responded to an F3 tornado in Prattville, Alabama. Okay, the first thing I remember about that is the debris that was everywhere. Okay, I rolled up on the main scene where the main command post was for the disaster. It was right behind the Walmart there in Prattville. They had a car on their roof. Okay, they took the F3 head on. So that'll give you an idea of what's going to happen, because there wasn't any Walmart to go and get some bottled water from and such. Okay. Luckily, we were able to get a lot of supplies from that Walmart legally, because the manager, the head manager of that Walmart was able to get to the site, and he was able to help us in the disaster recovery effort. And again, his name was Chris Day. I'll never forget it, sir. You were an exceptionally helpful individual, and you were a credit to the Walmart organization. I know it's a little bit of a plug there, but you know, it could have gone the other way. That's like in any disaster. You don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what's going to encounter. The only way you can be ready is to plan, and then tear your own plan apart. Doesn't necessarily have to be this, but take your own plans and tear them apart and see, what are you going to do when this happens? What are you going to do when that happens? What if this happens? Okay? I hope this helps. Thank you.